Alright, today we're going to do a timing belt and water pump on a 2000 Civic EX. The engine on it is a D16Y8. So first step is to jack it up, lock the back wheels, and take the driver's side wheel off. So here we go. Alright, so I jacked up the car and they're sitting on jack stands up front and wheel chocks on the back. Next thing you want to do is you want to remove the negative terminal on the battery, and then also remove your ground, and then I'm going to come down here. The wheel's taken off already, but you want to remove this splash guard down here. Get rid of all these fasteners, take them off, and go around and remove that piece. Okay, so I've taken off the negative terminal. Now make sure you have your radio activation code, because once you take it off it'll want that code for it to run again on your radio. Took the ground off as well, and I got the splash guard off. Make sure you have all your fasteners. They're all just 10 millimeters. Next, I'm going to pull all the spark plug cables. I'm going to take the valve cover off, all these bolts basically, and then I'm going to take the upper timing belt cover off of there so I can adjust it to top dead center for piston number 1. Okay. Alright, I got the valve cover off of there. You also had to undo a clamp right here, and then there was a bolt right here, and then there was this bolt up here for the ground, but no big deal. They're all 10 millimeters, pretty straightforward. Pull them all off. One thing I might caution you is these are the bolts holding them on. They're only 10 millimeters, and they're on there pretty tight, so be careful when you take them off. You don't want to break them. And then another thing I found out was the power steering pump is in the way, so I'm going to take it out and get all the I'm going to go ahead and get all the belts removed as well before I go ahead and get to this guy. Alright, just wanted to point out for the power steering pump, to get it off, you undo this bolt, and then you undo this lower bolt right here, and then you just kind of turn it towards the engine, and it loosens up the belt, so you can take the belt off. And then I'm just going to go ahead and remove those two bolts completely, so I can move this out of the way. Alright, so power steering pump out of the way. I pulled out this reservoir too. You can just pull it out. There's nothing holding it in really. Next thing to do is the belt for the AC compressor. Compressor's down there. The belt, there's an idler pulley. You can see my tool is attached to it right now. The idler pulley. Go ahead and turn that 10 millimeter bolt counterclockwise slowly, and it'll release the tension on that belt, and then you'll be able to slip it off. Alright, I got the belts off of there. One issue that I found was for the compressor belt, AC compressor belt, it wraps around an engine mount down here. Here's the engine mount. You won't be able to get it off unless you get the engine mount off of there. But in my case, my AC compressor is bad, so I'm not going to replace it right now, so I'm just going to cut that belt. I got a new belt for it anyway. The alternator, you just undo a bolt up here. I can't really see, but if you see a bolt that's in a slot down there, go ahead and undo that top bolt, and then there's a bottom bolt where it pivots about, and loosen those two bolts, and you'll be able to pivot your alternator forward, and that belt comes off pretty easily. Alright, next step, see this oil, your dipstick tube, you want to take that out. That just wiggles out of there, so just get a good hold on it and wiggle it out. There's an O-ring on the bottom. Make sure you replace that. And then next step is I'm going to go ahead and undo these bolts on the top timing belt cover. And by the way, there's your timing belt. You can see it right there. So I'm going to undo this cover and take it off. Alright, just wanted to add something real quick. When you were wanting to get your compressor belt off, your AC compressor belt, I mentioned that you had to undo the bolt that was on the top of that idler pulley. You also have to undo the bolt that's on the that's at the center of that pulley. So once you undo those two, the idler pulley will basically drop down as you undo the top bolt. But anyway, you have to get both of them to get it to move. So anyway, alright, so the top cover is off of there. Only 2 bolts, one at the front, one at the back. So once you got it opened up, if you look at this sprocket here, you'll see the word up on one of the legs of the gear. It's kind of in the middle of the screen right now. So you want that pointing up. That'll indicate top dead center for piston number 1. And the way you do that is actually go down here. The reason we got rid of that splash shield is because we want to get to that bolt down there. Turn that bolt counterclockwise only, and 2 turns down here will equal 1 turn up on the camshaft. So you want to keep turning this until you see the up mark on this sprocket pointing up. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, actually before we go ahead and adjust the position for top dead center, let's go ahead and take off this idler pulley bracket down here. Got my light shining on it. The idler pulley is out of there already, but I'm going to pull the bracket out of there as well. And you want to do that because you want to get the dipstick out, and then you also want to get the lower timing belt cover off. So, alright. Okay, before we go any further, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off. See, there's like sand and crap on the side of the sides of the head along the valve cover seal. So I'm going to clean that off, and I'm going to put my valve cover back on. I'm not going to tighten it. I'm just going to set it in place, just so we don't get anything in here, because this is a pretty sensitive area. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to also fill these holes here for the spark plugs with paper towels or something. So, alright, what I did was I lowered the car a little bit to get it more level, so I can adjust for top dead center. So you can see there's an up indicator on the sprocket, so it's up, and then there's 2 marks on each side. They're like little notches on the side of the teeth. Can't really see it here, but if you look at it closely, you'll see it. And those should be lined up to the top of the head where your valve cover actually sits. And then for the bottom, it was actually pretty easy to line it up to top dead center. There's like gun sight marks here. It's on your timing belt cover. Let me grab a light. See it? See that little gun mark thing right in the middle of the screen? Use that, and then there's a little triangle behind it, and you line those up with your eyesight, and then there's a white notch on the crankshaft pulley. So line it up using that, and then it'll be right on. Turn the crankshaft pulley counterclockwise only. So remember that. Alright, for the next step is you need this special tool. Let me show you this tool here. That's what it looks like. It's a Honda crank pulley removal tool. You attach it to a breaker bar, slide it in to the hex shape thing here on the crankshaft pulley. Okay. Alright, just let it sit like that, and then you would come in and catch that 17mm bolt and turn it counterclockwise. Now this is probably the most important step because that bolt is extremely tight. If you don't have that tool, some people do some weird ways of using chains and whatnot, but that's the best way, and it's $25, so it's not bad. Alright, so we're gonna give that a shot, see if we can break that bolt loose. Alright, here's the setup that I got for breaking the crank pulley bolt loose. I got 2 breaker bars, one attached to the tool, another one to break it loose, and I'm going to pivot it about this jack stand right here on the outboard side, and that should give me pretty good leverage, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, it wasn't easy, but I got it loose with a lot of attempts. But anyway, I had to, that holder tool kept wanting to come out, so I had to put some rubber bands around it and wrap it around the crank pulley to keep it in there. Finally came out. It'll sound like you broke the bolt or you broke something, but you're okay. It didn't break. It was just on there really good. Alright, next step is to loosen that up. Actually take it out and slide that crank pulley off. Alright, I got the pulley off of there. You just take that bolt out and just kind of wiggle the pulley out, and don't lose there's a Woodruff key there too, so don't lose that. I'll be replacing this bolt because I've had it fail on me once before. Not on this car, but on another one, but it's not good when it fails, so I went ahead and bought a new one. So next step is to take this lower timing belt cover off of there so we can see the timing belt. Alright, I've taken the lower cover off. There were 6 bolts holding it in place. You can see your water pump. There it is right there. And then the pulley below it, pointing to it right now, that's a tensioner. You basically undo the bolt in the middle of that, and it'll release the tension on the timing belt so you can slip it off. But the next steps are, you gotta take off that 10mm bolt. It's in the middle of the screen, the one in blue. You gotta take that off. That's the fluctuation sensor. Just put that out of the way. And then we're gonna take this whole bracket off of there. 3 bolts holding it in place. You gotta use deep sockets for those. But before you undo that, that's an engine mount, so you gotta support your engine. Just use some wood against your oil pan with a jack, and you should be okay. Alright, let's do that. Okay, I got the mount off of there. Next, and I got the little sensor pushed out of the way. Just a note here, if you notice on your sprocket down here, you also have a little notch on the top. On the top there you can see there's a little notch. That's used to also set top dead center. Once you slip your belt off, you might want to double check that mark. Make sure it's in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and undo the bolt on the tensioner down there and slip the belt off. But before I do that, it's a good idea to just kind of, get a feel for how much tension is on the belt right now, just so when you install it, you're gonna do it correctly as well. So, all right. Next step is I'm gonna make some marks on my timing belt. I'm gonna mark each side of this tooth that's on the top of the sprocket where it says up, and I'm gonna make some marks on the bottom sprocket on the crankshaft as well, right next to the little notch that's on there. And I'm gonna mark around my water pump sprocket as well. I'm gonna mark the rotation. That's also, I can transfer all those marks to my new belt so I can get it on exactly how it was before, since I knew it ran good before that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and undo that bolt on the tensioner and take my timing belt off, and I'm gonna drain the coolant by undoing, there's a little wing nut down here. Okay, take that off, but you probably want to take your cap off first on the top so it drains out completely. So you got to do that because I'm gonna take the water pump off, and you don't want a bunch of coolant coming out of there. So that's what we're gonna do. Alright, here's the old timing belt. Now, like I was saying, the bottom one is the old one, the top one is the new one. So you can see I've transferred over all those marks. That'll help me position it. So there you go. And I got the coolant draining right now. So I just let that drain all the way completely. Once that drains, you can go ahead and close that plug down there, and then remove your water pump. There's a few bolts around it, so you can go ahead and do that. Alright, here's the old water pump. Here's the new water pump. Looks like it's been replaced at some point, but they didn't use a Honda part, so you can see the liquid gasket around there getting all smashed all over the place. This one is a Honda one. It comes with the gasket on it, so I shouldn't have to do any liquid gasket. But there's 4 bolts and another one that goes to the back to the alternator bracket. have to take that one off too. So a bunch of coolant came out when I took the water pump off, and I drained the radiator completely, but there was a bunch of coolant in the block still. But anyway, no big deal. I'll just wipe it all up. And just you know, the coolant that you drain out, you want to send it to a recycling center. So, all right, the new water pump is in there. I couldn't get a torque wrench in there, so they're all 10 millimeters, but just get them nice and snug. And I also put the alternator bracket bolt back on, but I didn't tighten it because I'm going to adjust my alternator belt later. Okay, so before you put your timing belt back on, just double check all your TDC marks, top dead center. That looks good. The two marks on the side look good. And the bottom here, another pointer. See a little notch on the upper right hand of that sprocket? There's an arrow if you look on the engine block. I don't know if you can see it here, but line it up with that arrow on the engine block, and you should be at top dead center. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the belt on. Alright, new timing belt is in place already, and tension on it feels good. I tightened the idler pulley down there pretty good, and all my marks that I made went exactly where the old belt was. So I feel pretty good about that. It should be just the same as it was before, except it's a new belt this time. So you can see the bottom made some little marks on the belt there, so they're right on. Yep. Now I'm gonna just start putting everything back together. Alright, lower cover is back on, and all the 10 millimeter bolts are all tightened up. I got the crank pulley back on with the woodruff key in place. That was pretty easy to get back on. Now here are the new, here's the new bolt, and then the old one is the gold color one. It says you want to apply some lubricant, so I'm going to put some NICs on the threads, and here's the NICs that I'm going to use from O'Reilly's. It already has oil between the washer and the head. It says to lubricate that up too, but it's already got some oil that it came with, so I'm just going to leave it on there. I'm just going to clean up this surface. This surface has to be free of any kind of oil, so because that's your friction surface basically. So anyway, we're going to torque that guy on. Alright, so I got the new bolt in there, and there's a new procedure to do all this now. Honda came up with this new instruction. You can probably find it online, but the new bolt has a number 10 in the middle. You install it. There's some instructions here. First you torque it down to 145 foot-pounds, but then you break it loose, and then you tighten it down to 20, and then you make a mark, and then you go 60 degrees, and then you install all the accessories, you run it for 3 minutes, and then you tighten it another 30 degrees, so it'll add up to 90 degrees altogether. So I got to install the power steering pump back. I got to install the alternator belt back on, so I'm going to do that now. Alright, I got the cruise control back in place, all the belts. Well, I only have power steering and the alternator belt. I don't have the compressor belt, the AC compressor belt on because, well, I'm not going to run AC for a while. Let's see. So next, I bought all the seals for the valve cover, so I'm going to go ahead and swap all those out. Alright, you need to clean off the mating surface for the seal, and make sure you put liquid gasket at the corners here. There's 4 corners, here, here, and another 2 on the other side. I'm going to replace this seal, and I'm not going to replace the other ones right now, just because I don't have time. But yeah, once you set your liquid gasket here, make sure you put some on the corresponding area on the seal too. So this should be the home stretch. We're going to do that and then torque down the bolts for the head cover and then reconnect all the hoses and whatnot. And then I'm going to reinstall my top cover, and then I'm going to fill my coolant. I'm going to run it for a little bit. It said run for 3 minutes, and I need to come back down here and retighten that bolt another 30 degrees once I've done that. Alright, so after that we should be done. Alright, I started her up and everything ran just fine. So everything's all hooked up again. I did have to go back in here and get it all set up again to do the final torque on the bolt, and I managed to get it turned another 30 degrees. It wasn't easy. It kind of made you know, it sounded like it was breaking again, just like when you were breaking it loose, but it's just tightening itself. So I made some marks on the pulley to make sure I moved the 30 degrees, and it's there now. So now I just gotta top off some coolant, but I'm pretty much done. Alright, so if you guys were gonna do your timing belt, you know, it's not too difficult, but it's not something easy either. So anyway, good luck.